Hello there folks, this is Ferengi on board here. Welcome to my little YouTube channel, a place where I discuss a lot of things about spirituality, introspection and deeper introspection as well, dream interpretation and all sorts of topics and ideas that, well, at times I usually answer Quora posts about dreams and different topics that people might find answers and they don't know how to might find questions and they don't know answers for, and I do offer myself when I feel ready to provide people with some answers which represent ideas of mine, astral guidance that I receive, and you know ideas that I have from different sources I've read, different sources I've heard, um, and all sorts of the such. But I also prefer underlining the fact that everything that I hear is, everything that I will share is also part of my own experiences. So my truth may not necessarily be other people's truths. In this video, I came up with an idea. I wanted to discuss a bit about the world of Warhammer 40k and, well, a kind of a spiritual meaning behind the game. It will probably sound a bit strange, but let's get into it. As with most people, I have encountered this game when I was quite young, and I have played it for quite a while. It helped me understand a few points about myself, and, well, it is, at least for the period when I played, it actually proved like a really immersive game. It acts in such a way that it really allows the player to plunge into its lore, and it's also a very rich, like lore rich game with a lot of factions and a lot of canon stuff and, beyond canon, most likely, so many games to play. But I only played Warhammer 40k, the first one, I mean, not 2, not 3. I played a bit of the 3, yes, I've also played Space Marine, but I will always enjoy the first one with its different races and usually Dark Crusade, Soulstorm a bit less. The spiritual meaning behind science fiction in general and all the movies nowadays, which, well, many people funnily present as the self-destruction fetish, or the apocalypse, the end of humanity passion, right, the fear for that, these all are representatives, okay? These are representatives of an awakening awareness that we have as a race. Up till now, no one could give a damn about even the possibility of the world's end. Like, if we take into account 150 years ago, everyone would consume as much water as they could. There wasn't any law towards that, and laws were created also as a sense of balancing ourselves and making sure that things are much more in control in a way. Of course, they're easy to go beyond that and align them with own interests and purposes, but, well, come again, the purpose of laws is debatable. Now with the game, it's pretty much a spiritual representation of our world. The game features numerous races, each with their own perks, each with their own uniqueness and flavor, and unfortunately, in a way, like, the game presents, as of a spiritual standpoint, of course, it presents quite well the aspect that we live today. So many races, they are more or less humanoid, or they have some human features in a way, but most of them actually have one, I can't call it negative because it's part of consciousness, but they have this devotion, okay? They have this more like fanaticism, not a devotion, okay? They have this over loyalty, okay? Now everyone is zealous towards a group, or more or less a entity or two. So most of the species kind of present the idea of religion and what horrors we have done as a race, because it can actually be easily portrayed. The Space Marines, the fighters of the Emperor, they are just humans who, well, they just continue doing what humans did best: exterminate literally everything that is not their own. more or less. Like if we became a galactic civilization or more like a solar civilization, I'm not so sure if we actually would end up doing this. Now, if we take sci-fis into account, there can be endless possibilities, okay? Now, the races present a very low vibrational aspect, that of domineering others, and this idea of dominion presents clearly the lack of control. Everything is chaotic, even within their own premises. Every race, more or less, is somewhat low vibrational. Like the orcs are very hard to control, and they are representatives of repulsion, right? You can also call the green, which is a darker green, right, the color of hatred. I'm not sure if this was intentional, but they present in a way such an idea. Now, the Space Marines usually are blue because spiritually you can take them as a representative of the voice. They always use shouts, and they always use intimidation. They also seem to be the ones that think much more than the others, and usually they are much more aware of their own situation compared to the, for example, guardsmen, the Imperial guardsmen. They are more like the so-called clones in Star Wars. They just are born, like they are somewhat cannon fodder. So the point, they also kind of all look the same. So they're kind of another brick in the wall, as the song says. And the other point is, the problem with the bricks in the wall is that they're all replaceable. That is a problem. And Space Marines, in the end, they're more like they're also at least scholars, because they also have some more knowledge. Some of them may become probably a bit more psychic, and it kind of goes to show that scholars usually are more dangerous than brutes. Now, it's not always the case, but used effectively, and it's a great accent in here. The scholars can actually be much deadlier, because the idea of brutes is that brutes are literally everywhere. Almost anyone can become a brute, but not too many can become a scholar. And someone who can actually think, they're either dangerous to the system, or they are actually a valuable resource, okay? So most of the races have this problem of control. They all seek to dominate others, and like even the Necrons, for example, they are sheer representative of hatred and repulsion. Even if they are mere machines, they are capable of understanding, as it seems, all sorts of ideas and typicalities of their enemies. Bine, las la Okay, so with each of the races that are present in the game, there are different aspects, okay? Like the Dark Eldar, for example, they can be represented as the masters of illusion and deception. Their color usually tends a bit more towards the dark indigo, okay, which means a third eye that is full of illusions, okay? A third eye that is it is quite blocked, okay, because they have their own passion. They are so low on vibration, they only seek pleasure through inflicting pain on others, okay? Now, in the case of Chaos Space Marines, they have this color of red, okay? This red is it is usually a color of fear or lack of fear. Usually their color is a bit darker, which shows more of not necessarily a fear, but more like a madness, okay? It shows the fact that they are not from this world in a way, and they are not entrenched in this world. They just fight a war of madness, okay? This world is not necessarily for them, and they are not entirely part of that, because they are not rooted in this world, right? If Even if they kind of disregard fear because they're too mad probably for that, they still have a lot of rage, okay? A lot of rage, and they kind of tend a lot towards those lower vibrations as well. And as I have experienced through the game, it allowed me to manifest a lot of parts from myself, like being just plain dumb with the orcs, or being somewhat strategic with the Chaos Space Marines, and be more like strategically brutal, being even more strategic with Imperial Guards, because they have this passion to be quite defensive and attack usually seems to not be their uh, main advantage. Idea of dominating enemies through sheer technology and sheer range, like for example with Tau, one of my favorite warfares, that of having the greater range than the enemy. um, and well, of course, the idea of the mysteriousness of the Necrons, let's say. For the beginning, they were a race that I kind of despised, but I kind of fell in love in a way with them. Now, everything seems to tend, in terms of consciousness and its development, everything seems to tend more towards the level of the Eldar. They are much ancient, much more ancient than the other races. They have a wisdom of their own, even if they still tend to a lot of attachments and beliefs that they have. They have a lot more mystery, and they have a lot more, of their magical powers, let's say, and control over so many things. Okay, like teleportation far and wide. They have their own unique flavor, and also they have a passion for white, which in a way is the color of purity. The world of Warhammer 40k is quite an interesting one, I could say, because it shows how much we as humans have given our power and attention to the idea of religion, which is nothing else than a concept we ourselves have created. It is a concept that we have propelled, and we have um, propagated more or less, and we have created a lot of traumas in society. Now, what I want to understand, people to understand, and to also underline is that I don't want people to understand this as something very bad or even bad. It is a way of experiencing in the name of consciousness, and consciousness is so dependent on experiencing that it puts the whole universe at our feet. It's just, it takes a really long time to realize that, hey, you know what, in the end, everything takes time. Everything takes its own toll, and everything takes time. Leveling up in the name of consciousness, okay, becoming much more aware of who and what you are, this is something that takes multiple lifetimes, and come again, this is not something that most people actually will do. And for example, only this world we live in, you see, only this world has so many different species, most of them also extinct. So experiencing life on this world is so marvelous because it has so many unique flavors. And recently I have heard that, for example, there are a few countries that, for example, they have declared religion a psychiatric disease, and I kind of agree in a way. Now, I'm not against people who believe in whatever gods and deities they have, but so long as you're just keeping to your own business with those deities and beings that you have, that is what I consider like everything being okay. If you come over others and claim that your deity, your religion, your belief is superior to ours, then I really agree that it tends to become a psychiatric disease. And the lack of attention that's been, cyclically repeating in societies throughout time, well, the problem is this vicious cycle has been going on and on because no one was actually taught on how to raise their children and how to understand their own selves in the first place. Because as one develops and creates more roots in the higher chakras as well, and becomes at least a bit aware of those, they won't be able to understand life, and they won't be able to cherish anything that is regarding anything else than they are, because for a long time conscious beings, or actually beings who become conscious, these beings, they get stuck for a long time to the illusion of their body, and the idea of who they are only as through the prism of their physical body, because consciousness devolves, some may say, but consciousness always evolves. It always improves, and it also expands at the same time, because the point is, as it improves, the horizons of people actually improve. So, the point is, the planet itself, this world actually, is also improving its vibration. So the point is, the more it improves its vibration, the fact is, everything in this world also has to improve its vibration, but not only has, only it also does. Everything improves in vibration more or less. Okay, and what I was inspired by Warhammer 40k was that, well, it was an eye-opener for me. It was an eye-opener for the potential of fanaticism that I had. And well, at a certain age, I declared a bit of a war against what I called society from a long time. Ever for quite many years, I have created this idea, or more like it came to my mind, and this concept of society written with a capital S letter. The point is, it always represented a group. It was always a them, and I also knew they weren't part of this world. And it's quite amusing that nowadays I keep seeing all sorts of videos and all sorts of ideas about archons and all sorts of beings that I seem to have been guided, and I seem to be knowledgeable of such things like ever since I was quite very young. And some ideas, like I was in the 6th grade when I imagined for the first time, actually not imagined, a voice told me in my mind that life is nothing else than a video game. And I have been fascinated by this idea. And all I can actually see now is looking back in my time, right? Looking back at my history, all the video games that I have played, they allowed me to unfold different parts of myself. Because the point is, honestly, I cannot play video games because I kind of tend to live them. I more like live them, and well, I can still remember the times I would cry back then when I was playing like Conquest Frontier Wars, and I would lose ships stupidly to the AI because it was a bit brutal. And when I was young, I only had the demo, and the demo was quite a bit more challenging than the full version. All I can say is after playing it for so long, I actually felt the difference. Now, the point about video games and, well, Warhammer 40k is keep playing them, but don't let them become too much a part of yourself, because the more meaning you give to things, the more you cede power from yourself to other sources. And I also made a few videos about this. Okay, so I actually feel quite I actually feel quite nice for having this idea, although I did not present too much on this, otherwise I would make the video way too long. And I prefer having my videos sound more like a curiosity, a presenting my points on different topics and triggering a curiosity, a natural childish curiosity in people, so that they become more introspective themselves and realize and observe their truths, and well, help this way people hopefully realize that, hey, their emotions are valid, so whatever they are going through, it's actually quite valid. Okay, Warhammer 40k has been a game that allowed me to broaden my senses and my awareness. To most people it might sound as a game that's way too violent, but I will never condemn the idea of violence in games. Whoever cannot understand that violence was made in games just to be experienced as you would experience it in real life, the point is, you can experience that in video games without much, without any real life repercussion in the end. There are some rules in the game that, will turn against you once you commit violence or something like that, or most likely violence is the only thing you'll have to do to win the game. But come again, I will never ever consider that, as a kind of a problem. Okay, some people call it psychiatric if you enjoy killing stuff in games, but even if people derive a very great amount of pleasure from that, it's two different universes for me. Extracting, or feeling pleasure from killing stuff in a video game is to me something that cannot ever sound psychiatric or like a disease, because that person is enjoying themselves in a virtual world. Okay, so long as they're not hurting anything physical, right, anything of this world, and so long as that doesn't happen, well, so long as someone doesn't confound violence from the virtual world with violence in real world, right, and so long as they don't do such violence in the real world, well, I'm okay with that, even if they derive a lot of pleasure from killing stuff in a video game. After all, it's a way of relaxing in a way, and it is a way of burning through the hatred and rage that you have acquired by, people pissing you off, you having a poorly trained mind and especially emotional side, because no one teaches children how to control their emotions and how to not overreact to literally everything, and they end up making a fuss out of everything, and this leads to a lot of bad conclusions, and especially when hatred will always fuel additional hatred, and the more sources you have, the easier it is to control that. Hopefully you liked this video and the type of content that I'm usually creating. Feel free to see other videos that I also have. Feel free to like and subscribe if you like my type of content. Feel free to give positive criticism, since I'm always looking to improve, and well, all I can say is become more introspective, especially in these times. Take more care of yourself, and well, as usual, you are loved and appreciated. Ferenc Board signing out.